Gene Simmons, the lead singer of the hugely successful band Kiss, had one task to complete before his then girlfriend Shannon Tweed would agree to marry him. Shannon demanded that Simmons burn all the photos of all the women he'd ever slept with. Apparently it took him days because he'd slept with 4,800 women, and he even had all the Polaroids to prove it. Imagine that, sleeping with 4,800 women, or sleeping with thousands of men. It's the fantasy that our society paints for us, to sleep with whoever we want, whenever we wanted. And it was Gene Simmons' fantasy until he got married. He didn't want sex, sex and more sex. He wanted love. And after 9 years of marriage, he told Us Weekly, "I'm the most blessed guy, I think, who has ever walked the face of this planet." Why? Because love is better than sex. Love being better than sex is where Song of Songs is going to take us this evening. In the first 4 chapters of the book, Solomon has been leading us to the very centre of his book. The couple who are in love are now in bed together. Their desire has been aroused in each other. They have struggled when they were separated from each other. It's been hard to wait, incredibly hard, as the chorus has sung in their heads, "Do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." And at the start of chapter 5, they have been married. They've got to their wedding night and they've made love to each other in their marriage bed. They finally get to have sex. And that's the pinnacle, isn't it? Sex. That's what we want more than anything else. Someone who will give themselves to us completely. Someone to share this moment of ecstasy with, isn't it? Well, no. Love is better than sex. For in chapter 5, verse 2, the 4th stanza of the song begins, and we move from the honeymoon to the home, from the bedroom to the living room, and there we find trouble in paradise. You see, having sex doesn't solve your problems. Getting married doesn't fix up all your hang-ups. Finding someone who loves us doesn't mean there's no longer any disappointment or misunderstanding or loneliness or rejection or pain. It's only in fairy tales that couples live happily ever after. And King Solomon knows this. Actually, he might know it better than most. And so in chapter 5, we start with a knock on the door. The woman speaks in verse 2. "I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my beloved is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. My head is drenched with dew, my hair with the dampness of the night." You can imagine the scene. The guy is late home from work, or did he stop by the pub? It doesn't matter. But his wife has gone to bed and she's locked the door, and no amount of sweet talking will change her mind. "Come on, love, let me into bed. Dear, sweetheart, dove, gorgeous girl." He's been out all day and he's got one thing on his mind. And so is she, sleep. So his knocking is given the knock back. Verse 3, "I've taken off my robe, must I put it on again? I've washed my feet, must I soil them again?" His charms are not going to work on her tonight. She's had enough for the day. She's not going to put herself out for him. She's not going to be at his beck and call. No way, Jose. The garden that was once locked and then opened is now padlocked shut again. But then she starts to feel guilty. Or does she feel sorry for him? Verse 4, "My beloved thrust his hand through the latch opening. My heart began to pound for him. I arose to open for my beloved, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with flowing myrrh on the handles of the bolt." She realizes she's made a mistake, and she opens the door with perfume on her hands, ready to embrace her husband. And you know what? He's gone. He's run out of patience. She's knocked the ball on. And then she goes looking for him and she gets knocked over. Verse 6, "I opened for my beloved, but my beloved left. He was gone. My heart sank as his departure. I looked for him, but I did not find him. I called him, but he did not answer. The watchmen found me as they made their rounds in the city. They beat me, they bruised me. They took away my cloak, those watchmen of the walls." The watchmen, the ones who are meant to protect the city dwellers, stopped her from finding her husband. They struck her, they stripped her. She's humiliated and she's now panicking. And so she cries out, verse 8, Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, if you find my beloved, what will you tell him? Tell him I am faint with love. Tell him that I'm sorry. I really do love him. And these girls, this chorus of girls that appear time and time again in this song, reply back sarcastically, how's your love better than others, most beautiful of women? There you go. He's just like all other men. He's no different. He's not there when you want him. When you really need him, he goes walkabout. He hides away in his man cave. Solomon is telling us that love is hard work. In the words of Shakespeare in A Midsummer Night's Dream, the course of true love never did run smoothly. Or in J.C. Ryle's words, marriage is after all a union of two sinners and not two angels. Finding the right person doesn't take away the pain of life. We are selfish beings, and the person we love is also a selfish being. At times we will still feel exposed. We will get panicky. The ones that are meant to protect us don't always protect us. The ones who should give us good advice and stand by us often criticise us and our loved ones. Love is hard, hard work. So don't make marriage your God. Don't make sex your God. Don't make love your God. Make God your God. So often we build up sex or love or marriage as if it's the be-all and end-all. If I just find someone, I'll be happy. I'll be satisfied. But it doesn't work like that. The honeymoon period doesn't last forever. But that doesn't mean love isn't worth pursuing. C.S. Lewis in his book The Four Loves says this, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. To love is to be vulnerable. And if you make yourself vulnerable to another, you take a risk, a massive risk. But it is worth the risk. God took the risk with you and I, didn't he? He made himself vulnerable. He came as a man and demonstrated by his words and his actions the love of God. And we took him and nailed him to a cross. But God so loved the world that he was willing to die in our place in order to bring us to himself. God knows all about rejection. God knows all about pain. God knows there can be trouble in paradise. But next we return to restoring paradise. Yes, in the first part of chapter 5, there is a bump in the road, a massive bump. But it's the woman who takes the initiative to fix things up with her husband. While he's still gone, she ponders the question of the friends. What is it about your lover that makes him better than others? What is it that made you fall so truly, madly, deeply in love with someone like him? And it's a good question to ask when you're having trouble with your relationship. When the difficulties come, the bad points are about the other are obvious. But what are the good points? What do you really love about them? Joni Mitchell, in her 60s protest song, Big Yellow Taxi, has these words in the chorus, don't it always go to show that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? So now that he's gone, what sort of man has this woman got? Verse 10, my beloved is radiant and ruddy, outstanding amongst 10,000. This bloke, when she reflects on it, this husband of mine is outstanding. You put him amongst 10,000 other blokes, he's the one who's going to stand out to me. Because there are so many things I find attractive about him. Verse 11, his head is purest gold. His hair is wavy and black as a raven. He's not just like a king with a crown of gold. His whole head is made of gold. That's how noble he is. And yet he's tender also. His eyes are like doves by the water streams, washed in milk, mounted like jewels. And he says all the right thing. Verse 13, his lips are like lilies dripping with myrrh. And he's strong. Verse 14, his arms are rods of gold set with topaz. His body is like polished ivory. His legs are pillars of marble set on bases of pure gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as its cedars. And he's sweet, verse 16. His mouth is sweetness itself. He is altogether lovely. And most important of all, this is my beloved. This is my friend, daughters of Jerusalem. It's not just his looks, his words, his actions. He's my friend. He's my best friend. He's one in a million. Can't you see what's happening to the woman here? She's no longer majoring on the negatives, like he was home late. He just wants me to himself, or he didn't stick around long enough. Now she's remembering the positives, why she's in love with him. And the panic goes, and the desperation is now disappearing. And the friends pick this up and say, we'll go looking for him. Where shall we start? And she says something strange, something really strange. Verse 2, my beloved has gone down to his garden, to the bed of spices, to browse in the gardens and to gather lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine, and he browses among the lilies. Where is he? He's gone nowhere. He's still with the woman in their garden. He hasn't left her at all. He was there all the time. Emotionally, there is a distance between them. Relationally, the couple has drifted apart, but they have given themselves to each other uncategorically. So she knows where to find him. And it's now time to seek each other's forgiveness, to kiss and to make up. In any relationship, there'll be times of coldness and distance. One side or both sides will have said the wrong thing, done the wrong thing, and that hurts the other's feelings. But someone has to take the first step to reconcile. Someone has to put into words how they feel. Someone has to both forgive and forget to enable the couple to move on. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. For a couple, they've got to move from selfishness to selflessness. They've got to be able to give themselves away afresh. And that's not always safe to do so. You put your heart out there and you feel vulnerable. Emotionally, it can be a roller coaster. But if we can both just open our eyes to the person in front of us, open our mouths and tell them how much we love them, open our lives back to them, paradise can be restored. The woman takes the first steps and the man turns those steps into a giant leap forward. You think I'm outstanding? Well, you, my love, are unique, one in a kind. Verse 4, you're as beautiful as Tirzah, my darling, as lovely as Jerusalem, as majestic as the troops with banners. You're beautiful and you're terrifying. Verse 5, turn your eyes from me because they overwhelm me. You know me too well. You can see right through me, and that's kind of scary, he says. But where else would I go? You are irresistible. Your hair, your teeth, your cheeks, your face are beautiful to me. I can't take my eyes off you. And you're special, verse 8. 60 queens there may be, and 80 concubines, and virgins beyond number, but my dove, my perfect one, is unique, the only daughter of her mother, the favourite of the one who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed. The queens and concubines praised her. Do you get what's happening here? Instead of scolding her for locking a door the other night, he affirms her beauty and tells her of her power over him. Her displeasure has the power to unsettle this man deeply. Her approval means the world to him. He needs her. He can't do without her. All of her, from the head to the toe, in fact. He is truly blessed by being with her. And the friends chime in at this point. He's right, you know. She's out of this world. Who is this that appears like the dawn, fair as the moon, bright as the sun, majestic as the stars in procession? She's unique, one of a kind, his sun, moon and stars all rolled up into one. And this giving of each other praise, this commitment that he is mine and I'm his, starts rekindling their desire for each other. The girl says in verse 11, I went down to the grove of nut trees to look at the new growth in the valley, to see if the vines had budded or the pomegranates were in bloom. But before I realized it, my desire set me among the royal chariots of my people. There's now fresh evidence of growth, signs of growing love. And friends, love is not just about the good times, physically being with the one you love and have committed yourself to. It's about travelling with them in the difficult moments, It's about journeying through together, through the panic and the isolation, the late nights and the early mornings. That's how love will grow. When it's placed in the right spot, with the right person at the right time, it will blossom. The fruit will come, but you've still got to put in the hard work. But the work is well and truly worth it. And that's where the man heads to again. And for a third time, he describes to us the one that he loves. Whereas before he talks about 7 parts of her body and character, this time he sings about 10. 10. She's a perfect 10. He describes 5 parts of her upper body, her neck, her eyes, her nose, her head and hair, and 5 parts of her lower body, her feet, her thighs, her navel, her belly and her breasts. He values her as a person, a whole person. She's more than just a sexual object, more than just a friend. Every little thing she does is magic. Before him is a strong and majestic woman that he wants to be close to, enjoy time with, share his life with. A unique woman whom he loves and appreciates. This is the one, the only one who will satisfy him. Unlike Mick Jagger, who, like Gene Simmons, has also claimed to have had about 4,000 sexual partners, and yet sings his most famous song, "I Can't Get No Satisfaction, though I try and I try and I try and I try." This one woman will satisfy. In the bedroom, yes, but in all of life. Whichever room they are in, if they are there together, the man is truly satisfied. And that leaves the final section of our passage, what we might call the sealed section, where the husband and wife enjoy that taste of paradise again. And I don't think we need to go into the detail here, but let me say that they escape to the countryside and enjoy time and space with each other. They mix things up by getting out of the house and enjoying just being with the one that they love. Yet they don't want their love to be just private. They want the whole world to see that they're in love. They would love to go hand in hand down the street, a real no-no in those days, so that everyone can see how much they desire to be in each other's company. Now that might seem strange for us today in Australia, because you can hold hands with your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, but you couldn't in those days, and you still can't do that in many places in Islamic countries or in Africa in that matter. You can hold your family members' hand in public. You can hold your best friend's hand in public, but not your wife, not your husband. But this married couple want the whole world to know that they are smitten and in love. But then we get to the chorus, the words that have been sung 3 times throughout the song. Verse 4, "Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." And that chorus doesn't seem to fit. Isn't this the time when love should be awakened? It should be aroused? In marriage between a husband and a wife? Why sing the chorus? It was sung at the end of the first stanza when there was a deep desire between the couple who were in love. I get that. It was repeated after the second stanza where they got engaged and they could hardly wait for the relationship to get to the next level. I get that. It was absent after the first stanza when they got married and they were on their honeymoon. Why bring it back in the 4th stanza when they've kissed and made up? Why warn the reader again against awakening love until it's the right time? Because this is a warning to all of us that love is powerful stuff. The power of love is so extreme, it's so intense, it can take over your life. It can warm you with its soft glow and it can burn you when it gets out of hand. And because it's so potent, you can't play with love outside of marriage. You can't think that sex is worth dabbling in with any odd person. You can't dream of having multiple partners as if that and that alone will give you the satisfaction you desire, because it won't. Love is so wonderful that you may think you can short-circuit the process, jump straight into bed, calm those raging hormones. That might be the way to sex, but it isn't the way to love. Love is better than sex because love takes sex and puts it into the right place at the right time with the right person. When you are in a relationship like this, you provide the conditions where love can grow, where you can appreciate the other's body, mind, soul and spirit. And when you do that, love should get better and better. Love brings better sex. But sex doesn't always lead to love, because love walks through the ups and downs together. It copes with the fights, the selfishness, the drama, the panic together. It's committed to the other no matter what. And as that commitment works out in practice, you get to know the other more, and there's more and more to love. So wait for the real thing. Wait for love, not sex. Sex is a part of love, a good part of love, but it's not the main part of love. And the people who keep on having sex, more and more in the end, trade it all in for love. If they can find love, of course. If they can commit themselves to love, and if they're not so damaged themselves that they are no longer capable of love. But like any Old Testament passage, you need to move from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And here the American preacher Jonathan Edwards helps us. He once said, God is the highest good of the reasonable creature. The enjoyment of him is our proper and is our only happiness with which our souls can be satisfied. To go to heaven fully to enjoy God is infinitely better than the most pleasant accommodations here. Better than fathers and mothers, husbands and wives or children, or the company of any or all earthly friends. These are but shadows, but the enjoyment of God is the substance. They're but scattered beams, but God is the sun. These are but streams, but God is the fountain. These are but drops, but God is the ocean. Where do we get true love, true satisfaction? Not in sex, not in marriage, not even in love, but in the love of God that we find in Jesus Christ. And that love is available to us all, no matter what our relationship status currently is. Jesus is the one who in the beginning created paradise for him and his people. We lost that paradise when we wandered away from him and rejected God as the one we should ultimately love. And he's spoken to us again in his word. He's won us back by the sacrifice on the cross of his son and offered us a restored paradise in heaven. Jesus even promises he will take us personally there. Jesus is the one we should love more than anything else. Jesus, in him and in him alone, is our satisfaction, our complete satisfaction. So love God. Put Jesus first. Live for him alone. That is the only response to his love for us that we find in Jesus Christ. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for the love of Jesus, a love that is better than anything else this world has to offer. Help us to experience that love. Help us to trust in that love. And may you rekindle our love for you so that we can be ready for the wedding banquet of the Lamb of God on that last day. Lord, thank you for your love for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And thanks for watching us today. If you could press like to the Facebook page, or fill in the short survey that we put on our Facebook page. This will give us an idea of who's watching and how we can help you and care for you and pray for you in the days to come. Thanks very much. See you next week. Bye.